Anxiety is something that all of us struggle with. But what if I told you that today we're going to learn how to put down those anxieties and never pick them up again?
I would say, sign me up. It sounds a little too good to be true, but I am listening.
Well, it's going to take some time.
Okay.
It's going to take some work. But we have a practical application and a message today that's going to help us walk away from this life of anxiety and start living a life that's filled with so much more joy and happiness.
Love it.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Hope Church Online. My name is James, and I'm on staff here at Hope Church.
And good morning, everyone. My name is Nina. I am a longtime Hope volunteer. So here at Hope Church, we really want everyone to feel very comfortable and welcomed while they are here. We have so many different viewers joining us, viewers that have been going to church their whole life, viewers that maybe have been, gone to church but stepped away from church and are coming back, and viewers that are brand new. Like, this is a totally new concept. And so we just want you to know that we keep everyone in mind when creating our online experience, because while we know that church can be uncomfortable, we truly believe it doesn't have to be that way.
One of the ways that we do that is every single week we have chat hosts ready to serve you. Mm-hmm. So we've got Jessica hanging out on YouTube, Courtney's on Facebook, and their goal, they are there to answer any questions you have about Hope Church, about faith, take any prayer requests that you have, or just to chat with. So say hi to them in the comments and let them know where you're watching from.
Yes,
today.
And another way we can help you feel comfortable is to kind of let you know what to expect over the next hour. So after we're done hanging out with you, we'll send you into the auditorium. Our band will lead us in a song. We've got a great update about Hope Kids today, which will be awesome to hear about. We'll sing a few more songs, and then we'll hear a very relevant message with some practical application today, a little homework maybe. But that's all great, right? Nothing to be scared of. And it'll be really awesome if you want to enjoy, just sit and kind of bask in how amazing our band sounds. Do that. But if you like to participate, the words will be on the screen, so you can join us even if you don't know the song.
And that's a full rundown of service today. And I'm really glad that you brought up the Hope Kids update because we have Hope Kids online material for all of you at home. So maybe later today or later on this week, if you get tired of watching the same 100th episode of Cocomelon or Bluey or whatever the kids are watching these days, you can turn on these videos for your kids. But we also have pamphlets for you to follow along with. That way you can learn with your kids throughout the week. You guys can ask each other questions. It's just a great way to engage with each other throughout that time.
For sure. So James, last week we kicked off the series Recovery Road, and it is such an important one as we start the new year. So I know that for myself, anxiety is one of those things that can just kind of creep up suddenly. And while there are tools that I've used to, try to cope with that, the last 3 years have made it, I think, extra hard to cope with that at times. There's been a lot we've been dealing with: pandemic, social, political unrest, all kinds of things.
And that's just the stuff that's been on the news.
Right.
That's not even our personal lives we've had to deal with.
Exactly. Everything going on. And so I'm really excited about today because today we're going to learn about another tool, another thing that we can have in the arsenal to help us deal with anxiety, which, I'm sure none of us love to be experiencing. So hopefully you'll get something out of that today.
Yeah, and such a great point. And thank you for sharing that. Something that we really want to emphasize today is we are going to be talking about anxiety, but we're not going to say, you shouldn't have anxiety. You should just have Jesus. Our pastor, Jason, he's going to tell you about his counselors that he sees. We have people on staff that see counselors all the time. He's also going to say that if you take medication, we want you to keep doing the things that you're doing to handle that anxiety, but we're going to give you another tool today, just something else for you to apply to your life. And so we have two challenges for you, Nina and I do. The first one is to just do this practical application that you're going to learn at the end of the message. And at the end of the week, really reflect and just ask yourself, did I see something new in my life, or did I experience something new and joyful in my life?
Yeah. And the second challenge is to follow us on social media. So Facebook or Instagram, it's super easy. Our handle is Hope Lake Country. We have links below as well. And really the reason behind that is that all throughout the week, there's going to be posts and reminders to help you as you're trying to execute this new practical application in your life. And I know I need little reminders when I'm trying to build new habits. So I will be following for sure.
Yeah, so it's going to be a great service. We're excited. And listen, if you're new today and you are, you're not really sure about Hope yet, but you at some point want to ask any questions about Hope Church, you can always type new in the chat. Our chat hosts will reach out to you privately, and they'll get to know you a little bit, answer any questions you have about Hope Church. Plus, we have a thank you gift that we'd love to send you just to say, hey, thanks for hanging out with us because you're spending an hour of your time, and we know that that time is valuable.
For sure. So our time is almost up. We're going to send things to the band. We hope you have a great week and a very happy Sunday.
Have a great Sunday, everyone. We'll see you soon.
Well, good morning. Welcome to Hope Church. Hey, if you are newer with us this morning, thank you so much for choosing to do this with your Sunday morning. You can write new in the chat if you're online. If you're here in the room, you can grab the Connect card from the seat back in front of you and fill that out during the service today. Drop it off at the hub out in the lobby as you leave the building. We'd love to get you signed up for the newsletter so you can be in the loop on everything that's happening here at Hope. And if you have any other questions, you can get them answered at the hub as well. But we're going to get started today by singing together. So here in the room, you guys can stand on your feet. If you're watching at home, you can, I guess, stand off your couch or hang out, whatever you want, whatever's most comfortable for you. But we have an incredibly awesome, powerful, good God. He created the entire universe, yet he still chooses to love each and every one of us. And he chooses to know us and care about the details of our lives. And that is a God who is worthy of praise. So we're going to spend some time connecting with him this morning by singing to him. So let's get it going.
Hi, my name is Jen, and I get to be on staff here at Hope Kids. Every week, while you are worshiping and connecting with Jesus on your level, here in the auditorium and online, I get to be with your amazing children, helping them learn about Jesus on their level. Every week, they are worshiping through song and dance. They are hearing from the Bible, and then we are teaching them how to apply what they've learned to their everyday lives. We're watching them love others through participating in service projects that benefit our community. They've collected Kleenexes for Family Promise and cereal for the Oconomowoc Food Pantry, and they love to do it, so we will have more opportunities to come really soon. My personal favorite is when we see them sharing Jesus. They are inviting their friends to church, and we love this because eventually we get to meet that friend's parents. And we celebrate that because so many people have their faith journey start with a simple invite from a friend. This is all possible through your generosity. We are able to stay connected with families during the week through updates to the Hope Kids website. So we're posting weekly Bible stories. We are giving parents resources to connect with their children and talk about God during the week as opposed to just on Sunday mornings. Thank you for your generosity, and if you would like to support the mission of Hope, you can text any dollar amount to 84321, or you can give on our website, hopelakecountry.com. Or if you came prepared to give a physical gift today, there are black boxes at the exit of the auditorium. You can drop them in on your way out. We appreciate everything that you do, and you are directly impacting the faith of our next generation.
Thanks, Jen. Absolutely. I love Hope Kids personally. My wife and I have 4 kids, and they love going to Hope Kids and playing with friends back there and crafts and all this cool stuff. But the real beauty is throughout the week when we catch one of our kids singing a song they've learned back in Hope Kids. Or the other day I was listening to kids play in another room, and all of a sudden they're talking about God and how what they were doing could relate to God and what it would be like for God to be there doing that with them. And it was such a sweet moment, and Hope Kids has had such a great positive impact on my kids' lives. I'm very thankful for that. So get your kids signed up for Hope Kids when you're here in person. Make sure you're taking advantage of the online resources that we have for your kids there so they can be growing in their faith, not just here on Sunday mornings, but throughout the week. Well, let's get back on our feet. We have a couple more songs to sing together to keep connecting with our incredible Heavenly Father. When worry tries to crowd you out, anxiety thinks it can win. When painful memories surround me, the Spirit come and draw me in. I'm desperate for you, like a ship without a sea, like a sail without a breeze. I need you. I'm desperate for you, like a bird without a wing, like a heart without a beat. I need you. When lies find a way to tell me things that start to sound like truth, confusion comes and starts surrounding. Spirit
You go before I know that you've even gone to win my war, and you come back with the head of my enemy. You come back and you call it my victory. Oh, you go before I know that you've even gone to win my war. Your love becomes my greatest defense. It leads me from the dry wilderness, and all I did was praise. And all I did was worship. And all I did was bow down
seat.
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Hope Church. Everyone watching online, we are so glad you're here. To everyone in the room, I'm excited you can be here for part 2 of our series, Recovery Road. If you're new here, my name is Jason. I'm the lead pastor on staff here at Hope Church, and I'm going to be, just so you know up front, I'm going to share a lot of things personally this morning. I'm going to be an open book today. The first thing you need to know about me is that our family is a minivan driving family, and I'm not ashamed of that. In fact, in Lake Country, this is the last act of rebellion available to the suburban family. You guys drive an SUV? 10-year-old minivan, right? I mean, what else can you do that's so countercultural than that? At least when Kathy's driving it, it's in minivan. When I drive it, it's the man van. But all right, so we drive that car, we're fine, but it does have a major design flaw that has gotten us so many times. And the design flaw is that whenever a passenger, AKA one of our 3 kids, turns on a reading light in the back, it stays on, and then when you turn off the vehicle, all the interior lights come on, and then you walk away and all the lights stay on. Then after like a minute, they all turn off, except for the one that was manually turned on. That one stays on, and after this happened about 17 times when we walked out to a dead battery in the morning, we thought we should probably pay attention to this because just one light doesn't consume too much power. But when you leave it on for long enough, it will eventually drain the battery. So if the battery was pretty new, if it had a full charge, it would still crank in the morning. No big deal, better turn that light off. But if it were an older battery or a really cold Wisconsin winter morning, yeah, we walk out to a car whose reserves have been depleted. A small drain, given enough time, will deplete the charge. Now, what's true of our minivan is true of our inner lives as human beings. As human beings, we have remarkable levels of reserves in our emotional, spiritual, mental lives. And those are there because in life, we face adversity, we face hardship, we have to rally, come back, bounce back, and that's why God made us with the ability to carry reserves. Because normal everyday life, we experience loss, pain, heartbreak, grief, sadness, disappointment, and we have these reserves so that when these hit, all right, back on our feet, here we go. There's still a better future ahead. Let's keep moving forward. But unfortunately, over the last few years, in addition to the normal losses of life that drain our reserves, we've taken that up a level. We've layered on top of that things like COVID-19 and political polarization and the Great Resignation and masks and quarantines and school closures and people arguing online about all of these things as they happen, and Roe v. Wade and the Supreme Court. Everything we've gone to has been a drain on our reserves. And as human beings, if we allow our inner lives to become depleted, that's when things break inside of us. And for the last years, we have seen example after example in everyday life of people around us who let their reserves become depleted, and then they start acting and behaving in ways that are not healthy or helpful for them or for anyone around them. And we felt that in our own souls as well. And it's not just that we want to replenish our reserves so that we don't get too empty and things go wrong inside of us. As human beings, we were made to live with full reserves. That's where the joy is in life. That's where the energy is in life. That's where we live lives of optimism and confidence. That's where we thrive and flourish. And that's why we're talking about this in church. It's not just that you don't want to become depleted and experience that kind of life. God made you. He loves you. He made you in his image, and he made us to flourish as his creation, as humanity. And he made us to live and lean into the joy and optimism and celebration of this life that he gave us, this life that he gave to you. So what we're doing in this series is we are learning how to replenish the reserves of our inner lives. After a season that we've had to dip into our reserves over and over and over again. But we're not going to be able to do that until we address the problems that are draining our batteries. See, if I went out to my minivan on a cold morning and, oh no, it won't crank, one of the kids left a light on, and I charge up the battery and I give it a full charge, but I don't turn the light off, you would say, dude, what are you thinking? Yeah, you filled it up, but it's only going to empty again. You have to turn the light off, then you can sustain your charge. Or if you have a bucket and you want to fill it with water, but there's a hole in the bottom, you can fill that thing to the brim, but it's going to empty out again because you need to patch up the hole before you can fill up that bucket. In the same way, in your emotional, spiritual, mental life, there are holes in the bottom of our buckets. There are things draining the battery on our reserves. And until we deal with that, it doesn't matter what you put into your inner life, it's going to drain right out. So today, we're going to talk about how to patch up the holes in the bottom of your soul. And the number one thing draining our reserves is anxiety. Now, we all know what anxiety feels like, but maybe we don't stop and think about and define what anxiety actually is. So here's what anxiety is and the purpose for it. Anxiety is a general threat detection emotion. This is the part in your brain that looks out, scans the horizon, scans the future, and says, are there any threats we need to prepare for? That's anxiety. Now, anxiety is a little bit different than fear. In fact, in the DSM-5, it describes the difference between these two emotions that are obviously related but distinct. Fear is the emotional response to real or perceived imminent threat. Whereas anxiety is anticipation of future threat. Okay, so fear has an important purpose. Fear says, there's a threat, take action. There's a snake, you feel fear, take appropriate action. Okay, there's a car swerving into your lane, you feel fear, take appropriate action. Dude, you left your dirty socks out again, and your wife said, if you leave your socks out one more time, and now she sees them, you feel fear. Take appropriate action. That's the purpose of fear. And it serves us. Now, there's another reason why God made us to fear, and this is what we talked about last week. Last week, we read the story of the disciples in a boat in a storm, and they felt fear. They were afraid that they were going to be drowned in this storm. So they wake up Jesus and they said, we're about to drown. Jesus calms the storm. And after the threat of which they were afraid subsided, we're told they became even more afraid, this time of Jesus, not of the storm. Because the storm was more powerful than they were, but Jesus was more powerful than the storm, and he's in the boat with them. And they had no power over the storm. It was unmanageable power. But Jesus, he's even more unmanageable than the storm is. He didn't do what they wanted him to do. And they were afraid. Now, throughout the scriptures, we're told that the fear of the Lord is actually a good thing. You're supposed to fear the Lord. To which you say, how can that be a good thing? Fear tells us to take appropriate action. And in the face of God, see, we think of God as kind of our buddy. God is creator. God is all powerful. And the disciples saw that firsthand. They saw him wield his power. And God is your judge. You will stand before God on your last day, and God will judge you for the life you live. The appropriate emotion is fear. And fear says, take appropriate action. Well, what's appropriate action? The answer is to look to the cross of Jesus. Because at the cross, Jesus took his unmitigated raw power and he coupled it with his unfailing love. And he leveraged all of his power combined with his boundless love to bear our sins, to pay for our failures and our iniquities, and to bear that punishment before God so that in exchange we have his forgiveness, his grace, his acceptance, and his love. That's why Proverbs 14, the verse we looked at last week, said the fear of the Lord is the fountain of life. The fear of the Lord says take appropriate action. Appropriate action is look to the grace of Jesus, where his love and power come together. And when we see that, life flows within us. It's the fountain of life. That's where we replenish our reserves. I said last week, if you drive a car with a diesel engine, pull up to the diesel pump. If you have an electric vehicle, pull up to the charging station. But if you're a human being, we were made in the image of God, and we need God to refuel our tanks. That's fear. Now, anxiety is not about a present or imminent threat. Anxiety is a generalized emotion. It's looking into the future of what could go wrong. If you're hiking in the woods and a bear jumps out, that's fear. There's a real threat. Take action. But if you're just worried a bear could theoretically jump out, that's anxiety. There's no actual threat. There's just the concern of a threat. Now, anxiety is something I said before, we feel more than we think about. That's because it's not just something psychological that happens inside of us. Anxiety is something physiological that happens inside of us. Here's what happens when you experience anxiety. Your amygdala in your brain senses there could be danger. So it sends a signal. It sends a signal to the hypothalamus, which controls the central nervous system, and it says, danger, danger, battle stations. It says, I'll relay the signal. Through your nervous system, your body is told, release the hormones, and a cascade of hormones fills your bloodstream like adrenaline. Now, all of this happens before the message is relayed to your hippocampus, because that's the part that stores all your memory, and it can compare whatever your amygdala thinks is a potential threat with all of your experiences where you can start to assess, well, is that actually a threat or not? Too late. Your body's already flooded, and the anxiety is there. Your pulse quickens. If you're at night, and if it's at night and you feel that anxiety, you are not going back to sleep anytime soon. Your blood pressure rises. Everything in your body gets ready for action. And this is why we feel anxiety. Some of us feel it as a pit in our stomachs. Some of us feel it as a tightening in our chests. Okay, some of us feel it as tension in the shoulders or neck. Some of us experience a headache. We literally feel anxiety before we can even think about whether or not we should feel anxious. Now, anxiety isn't all bad. Like fear, it serves an important purpose, because sometimes you should be wary of threats in your environment, okay? Anxiety, when it's working properly, it's like the smoke detectors in your home. They're just kind of quietly operating in the background, looking for danger, and if there is any, they alert you. Hey, there's danger here. But miscalibrated anxiety is like the smoke detectors in my home. The smoke detector in our kitchen is so sensitive. If somebody cooks toast for 3 seconds too long, it fires and it says, fire, fire, fire. But it's not enough to do that alone. It sends a signal to all the smoke detectors in our house, just like happens in your central nervous system. Now they're all shouting, fire, fire, fire. If I'm in my basement office working and the smoke detector goes off, do you know what my first thought is? Someone's cooking toast. Now, God forbid they burn the toast. I don't know what would happen. And it might relay to the fire department, but it is so sensitive, it's miscalibrated. And because it's miscalibrated, it's disruptive. That's what anxiety does in your life. When your brain is signaling things are a threat, when there's no actual real threat to your well-being, that's disruptive to your physical, emotional, spiritual, mental health. That's one problem with anxiety. The other problem with anxiety is when we sustain it for too long. Okay, if it turns on and it doesn't turn back off, that'd just be like a fire Actually, it's like the fire detector that has the dead battery at 2 a.m. So you want to make $1 billion, you create a fire detector that the batteries only die at 2 p.m., okay? But when they go off at 2 a.m. and beep, beep, it's just like this disruptive thing. That's anxiety that never turns off. That's anxiety that we sustain. That's like the battery in our minivan. And the light's left on longer than it should be left on, and it drains the battery down. So today, we're going to learn how to turn off that light, how to plug that hole in the bucket, how to turn off anxiety so that we can begin to refuel our reserves. Now, this is something I'm going to speak about with some first-hand knowledge today. And I'm going to be a little bit vulnerable on the stage today. I think enough time has passed between the event and today to be able to share it without triggering any anxiety in you guys. So I apologize if I do. I said that the whole idea for this series came from my own life, where I just had a 5-year stretch in life where just an unusual number of challenges, adversities, setbacks, things like that, to the point where my inner life was drained. So I came to the elders of the church, the staff, said, hey, listen, I need to recoup. I need to replenish my reserves. They blessed me with 3 months off last summer to take a sabbatical. The sole goal was to replenish my tanks. So I talked about that a little bit last week. Today, I want to talk about how I had to learn this lesson firsthand, and how I had to patch up the holes in my own soul that were being caused by anxiety before I could begin to refuel my own tanks. So the first symptom I felt that I talked about last week was I was feeling flat a lot of time, wasn't feeling a lot of joy, even though things were pretty good in life, wasn't feeling a lot of energy. That's how I knew my tanks were getting low. The second symptom I felt didn't hit until after my sabbatical began. And it hit me 7 days after I stepped away from Hope Church. Here's what happened. I didn't want to be the guy who disappeared, no one can see me or know I'm alive for 3 months. When I'm on sabbatical, I'm like, my friends go to church here. I love our staff. We're tight. We get along awesome. We have fun together. It's a fun place to work around here. So I'm like, I don't want to be dead to the world. And so our staff had an outing planned a week after my sabbatical began. The outing was we were going to go to the new Doc Hounds Stadium and catch a baseball game. So we're going to tailgate here in our parking lot. And since it's right over there, we're going to walk over there, catch a game. And Kathy and I talked about it, and we're like, well, yeah, we like our coworkers. It'll be fun. Let's just go goof off and have fun. They'll respect the fact that I'm on sabbatical. Nobody's going to talk shop. It'll just be goofing off. I'm like, all right, let's go. So we decided to go. And I am telling you, as soon as I pulled into this parking lot, something flipped a switch in my inner life. And it wasn't just anxiety. The only word I have to describe what I felt was instant dread, which was totally weird because it's not like there was someone there that I didn't want to see or something awkward I had to confront. Just out of the blue, this dread filled my soul. And I knew right away I should not be here. 7 days earlier, I just kind of emotionally turned all this off. And now just stepping back to the physical location, something flipped. But someone saw me, so I couldn't quick turn around. So I'm like, I guess I'm in for it now. Came in, put on the pleasant face, pretended I'm fine. No, I'm good. Oh, I love sabbatical. It's really rejuvenating. Yeah. Well, on the inside, I'm just dying on the inside. So we make it through our tailgate, make it through 7 innings, and we leave. And I'm like, Kathy, something's going on right now. And I just kind of described to her what I was feeling. And this analogy came to me, and I hope you'll be patient and forgive me for this, but this was the analogy that came to me. I said, here's what I feel like. I feel like I'm Dr. Frankenstein, and I've poured my life into creating this thing, and now it's trying to kill me. Now, I didn't believe that. I didn't think that. But I absolutely felt that. So I'm like, I need to figure this out now. And so I started figuring out, what is this feeling? What are the roots of this? What's going on? And my first thought was, maybe I'm not supposed to be a pastor anymore. Maybe God called me to be a pastor for a season of my life, and maybe that season is over now. So that's where I started, trying to figure that out. And long story short, through prayer, discernment, I'm like, no, I'm still supposed to be a pastor. I really believe God's gifted me, called me, put me here to be a pastor. That's my role. Then came the harder question. The harder question was, well, maybe I'm not supposed to be Hope's pastor anymore. And this was a question I did not want to ask, to be perfectly transparent. I mean, if I'm having this emotional reaction to driving onto the campus at Hope Church, maybe I'm not supposed to be Hope's pastor anymore. But after prayer and discernment, I realized, no. When I moved here, every cell in my body said, you're supposed to be here. Now, depending on your faith background, maybe you think God called me here. Maybe you think I had intuition, whatever it is. I believe God called me here. Nothing has released me from that. Everything inside me said, no, you're still supposed to be here. Like, okay, well, what's going on then? Two things were going on. Number one was that exhaustion that I mentioned last week. When the tanks are depleted, your emotional and spiritual and mental life are not functioning on a fully rational and healthy, thriving level. But the second thing that was going on was this. All of us operate with a certain amount of anxiety in life. And not all anxiety is bad. In fact, a little anxiety helps with performance. If you have a test coming up, or if you have a presentation to give, or whatever you do, a little anxiety sharpens your focus and gets you in peak performance mode. That's a good thing. Well, I was carrying so much of that along with some unhealthy anxieties. When I walked away, I put it all in a closet and closed the door and said, I'm not going to think about that for a little while. But when I drove back here, all of a sudden, all of them triggered at once. And it was an overwhelming experience in my inner life. And I said, okay, now I know what I have to deal with. And I was instantly actually very grateful I experienced this only 1 week into my sabbatical, because I suddenly knew with crystal clarity what I needed to figure out. And what I needed to figure out was how to deal with the drain on my battery, this anxiety. And what I learned and begin to practice is what I'm going to show you today. And the good news is it's not complicated. It's accessible to all of us. You can begin to do this right away. It will take some time, and it will absolutely take thoughtfulness, but I'm going to show you, and this is what I love the most, what I'm going to show you today, the most recent medical data shows that the spiritual approach to dealing with anxiety is every bit as effective as antidepressants, but without any side effects. Now, disclaimer, I'm a pastor. I'm going to show you the spiritual approach. And we are not going to be simplistic. I don't want to be a reductionist and say, just do the spiritual thing and pray and all your anxiety will go away. Get off your medication. Stop seeing your therapist. No. I don't want you to change a thing in your life. Don't change your medication if you're on medication. Don't stop seeing your counselor if you see a counselor. I'm going to add a tool to your belt today on how to take a spiritual approach to dealing with anxiety, because Jesus taught it is absolutely something you can push back on. Here's what Jesus said in John chapter 14. He said, do not let your hearts be troubled and do not be afraid. Now, we understand fear. That makes sense. When he says, but don't let your hearts be troubled, that's talking about anxiety. He said there's fears, don't let yourself be afraid, but there's also a troubled heart. But what he said is fascinating. What did he say? Do not let your hearts be troubled. You're like, Jesus, you don't understand. You don't understand my boss. You don't understand my family. You don't understand what I'm going through. Okay, Jesus said, no. You let anxiety live in your heart. Yes, it's just triggered. That's part of how I made you, but you're the one who lets it live there, and you can push it out of your house. You say, well, how would we do that? I'm going to show you 4 verses that paint the picture for us. First one is from Jesus in Matthew chapter 11. He said, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, all of you whose reserves are depleted, all of you who have a drained battery. He says, come to me if you're weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. I will replenish your soul. I will refuel your inner life. Again, the diesel car goes to the diesel pump. Humans have to go to God to replenish our reserves. So he begins with an open invitation. And if you're running on surplus, if you don't have any deficit in your reserves, awesome, then you're doing great. You keep up whatever you're doing. But Jesus says, if you're weary, if you're burdened, I want you to come to me. And we say, well, what do we do then? I'm in church. What do I do with that? Here's what we do. Peter, the disciple, told us what to do when we come to Jesus when we're burdened. Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. Now, I need your help. I need you to say the word highlighted in yellow. If you're watching at home, say it out loud. If you're in the room, say this out loud with me, if you will, please. Peter said, cast your anxiety. Cast your anxiety. Which anxiety are you to cast onto Jesus? Okay, here's what we do. We look at our anxiety and we think to ourselves, well, this one's trivial. I'll just carry it. And this one's dumb. I know I shouldn't be stressed out about this, so I'll just carry that one too. And it's kind of stupid and it's kind of childish. I shouldn't be stressed out and anxious about that, so I'm not going to give that one to Jesus. I'm just going to carry that one as well. And what happens is we're just turning lights on all over the place and our batteries are getting drained. Peter says, no. Whatever is making you anxious, if it triggers anxiety, any of it, cast all of it onto Jesus. Why? He cares about you. He didn't simply die on a cross so you can go to heaven someday when you die. Right now, he intended for you to flourish in your inner life. So you take whatever's making you anxious and you cast it onto him, and he absolutely wants to carry all of it, even the stupid, even the trivial, even the stuff that's your fault. He says, bring it all to me. I'm the one who wants to carry that. Now, Peter did not come up with this idea by himself. Of all the New Testament authors, he quotes the Hebrew Scriptures, the Old Testament, all over the place. He got this idea from Psalm chapter 55, which says, cast your cares on the Lord, and he will sustain you. He doesn't want you to carry that burden by yourself. He says, I want to sustain you. I want to carry you. I want to refuel and recharge your battery. Okay, so time to get practical. How do we take this idea? Jesus' invitation, come to me if you're weary, I'll give you rest. Peter's command, which he just found in the Psalms from David, cast all your anxiety, cast all your worries, cast all your cares on him. How do we do that? To find the answer, we're going to look at our last verse today from Psalm 139. You ready? David prayed a prayer. Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. This language is the language of mindfulness. This language is the language of meditation. Meditation, Christian meditation, is thinking deeply in the presence of God. And David invites God, God, my inner life is an open book to you. I want you to search me, and I want you to know my heart. See, Jesus is the one who told us, do not let your hearts be troubled. Okay, search my heart, Lord. It's an open book to you. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. If there's anything in my head that is anxious, God, I want you to see it and I want you to reveal it to me. This is the language of thoughtful, mindful meditation. God, in your presence, I am opening my mind and my heart to you to say, search me, reveal, and show me anxiety so that I can take it and cast it onto you. I can release it to you. Now, this summer, that's what I began to do. I began the practice of mindfully, in meditation, releasing my anxiety and cares to Jesus. Now, here's what's really cool. I didn't know this at the time. I'm just like, Scripture says that I'm going to do it. I need to deal with this anxiety that I've been carrying beneath the surface. 2 months ago, the results of a medical clinical study were released in the Journal of the American Medical Association. You can read this report online, everything they did with the study. And what the study showed was that when they treated adults with anxiety disorders, and they had two control groups, one got medication, one practiced meditation, the group that practiced meditation had results that were equal to the group that was on medication. Here's what the results said. In this randomized clinical trial of 276 adults with anxiety disorders, 8-week treatment with mindfulness-based stress reduction. Now, this isn't even Christian. This is just general. Let's be mindful. Let's be aware of our thoughts and what's in our hearts. 8-week treatment with mindfulness-based stress reduction was non-inferior to escitalopram. I always mess that up. Escitalopram. Escitalopram is the generic version of Lexapro, a very commonly prescribed anti-anxiety medication. And what we're learning is that mindful meditation is equal in effectiveness to one of the most commonly prescribed anti-anxiety medications. And 2,000 years ago, Peter said, cast your anxiety on God because he cares for you. And 3,000 years ago, David said, cast all your anxiety on the Lord, and he will sustain you. And Jesus himself, the night that he was betrayed, went to his Father in heaven, and he said, my soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. And he went to his Father in heaven for strengthening. So that's what I began to do. And I'll tell you about my experience of it, because I hope it's encouraging for you. 3 to 4 times a day I did this at first, because I worked through it with my counselor. I'm like, let's put the plan together. Let's figure this out. And I would pray, search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. And at first, it was the loud anxieties clamoring for attention. Now, in your life, you already know what the loud ones are, don't you? They're shouting at you all the time. For me, it was the burden of feeling responsible for the well-being of an entire church full of people, a growing church. It was, the stuff we all deal with family concerns and things like that. It was just the loud ones. I said, okay, Jesus, I release this to you. I'm carrying this anxiety. I'm casting it on to you. I'm giving it to you. Jesus, I'm giving everyone and everything to you. All my anxious thoughts, everything in the news, everything that's going on, I just release it to you, Jesus. And here's what happened. Over the next couple of weeks, I experienced something. Those anxieties that just 1 week into sabbatical had a grip on my inner life, I noticed at first they began to loosen, and then they broke free, and then eventually, after persisting with this habit, they dissipated. They started to float away. Except they weren't floating away. The Lord was carrying them to sustain me. And so I kept at it. After those ones were gone, I'm not really feeling anxious about any of those things anymore. Then I found there was another level beneath that and another level beneath that. They're the quieter anxieties. They're there, but they're just getting drowned out by the loud ones. Of course, these were much more personal in nature, where I have personal sin or idolatry starts to surface. Idolatry is when you love anything more than Jesus. You trust anything more than Jesus. Your life has meaning in anything more than Jesus. And and when you have idolatry, by the way, when you love or trust or hope in anything more than Jesus, it will inevitably produce anxiety, because it won't love you like Jesus. It won't forgive you like Jesus. It won't carry you like Jesus. So when those began to surface, I began to release those as well. Jesus, I release this. I give this to you. And it's fascinating. When I read that study I just referenced, because it was released in November, it was about 8 weeks into this practice that my soul, for the first time in a long time, came to a place of stillness. I mean, last week we looked at how Jesus calmed the storm, and when he did, we saw that the water just instantly became calm like glass. That's what was happening in my soul. The God who quieted the storm is the God who began to quiet the anxiety in my own heart, and everything became calm and still. And that's when I noticed things that were getting poured into my inner life, they began to stay. And the tanks began to refuel, and I began feeling joyful and excited and optimistic. It was 2 months into my sabbatical. I could finally start thinking about coming back to be Hope's pastor and be excited about what's coming up, because before I left, just so you guys know, we planned the next season, and the next season at Hope, it's exciting. We're going to start talking about it in February. Don't miss a single Sunday of February, because we're going to talk about what's next and how we're all going to be part of it. And I'm just geeked for it, but I wasn't ready for that emotionally or spiritually or mentally until I patched up the holes in my soul. So today I'm going to give you an exercise, and I'm going to plead with you to begin to practice this, because the next 2 weeks we're going to stack 2 more habits on this. It's going to be like a Lego tower, but this is the base. And I am asking you at least twice a day to find a quiet place. Maybe you want to light a candle. Maybe you want to put on what you find is relaxing music. That's something that'll help you focus and think and meditate and be mindful, where you can pray, "Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and reveal any anxious thoughts." And I want to just walk you through that right now. So we're going to close my time on the stage with just a moment of meditation. So I'm going to ask you to, if whatever helps you focus, if you close your eyes, I'd encourage you to close your eyes, look down. If staring at me helps you focus, fine, stare at me, I don't care. But this is about you being still in the presence of God to cast your anxiety on him. So let's close our eyes and begin. Take some deep breaths. Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. Jesus, I give everyone and everything to you. Everyone and everything. What do you need to let go of? Jesus, I give you all my anxiety, all the news, all the stress, and I release them to you. I cast them on you, and I ask that you will sustain me. And I pray this in your holy name. Amen.
Let's just stay just as we are. We're going to keep this moment going.
When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot thou hast taught me to say, it is well
see what God does in our lives as we take this and practice this throughout the week. If there's anything you would like prayer for, if you want to be praying with someone, you can write prayer in the chat. We'll have someone right here to the left of the stage ready to pray with you. You can just walk right on up as everyone else walks out of the room. We'll see you right back here next week to continue this series, Recovery Road. Have a great week.